All right, we finished up the flowchart last, and now we're ready to go ahead and code. So here is our human algorithm that we'll be using in order to do that. I've went ahead and I've coded out a lot of what we need to do first. And should be probably your first way of coding this, and that is I'm going to do my output, my final math. Probably might have not done all this right now, but that's pretty, you should know how to code that by now in this class. Here's all my assignments, here's my inputs, all that is done. So in here, the most important thing to remember is to mark your braces, because you'll end up missing a brace and then hosing up your program. So the most important thing to do is comment them so you know exactly where the start and end of each of my decision structures are. Alright, so this works this well. So the only thing really that I'm missing, and let me go ahead and move this over, is this part right here where I'm trying to pick the one. And anytime we're looking for one value in one place in memory and trying to compare it, it's always best to use switch rather than using if, else if, because we don't have to mess with all these braces. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I go ahead and I'll go ahead and just copy this first one. Okay, so there's my first step. And if I come over here and underneath my calculations, I'll go ahead and paste it in. Instead of using if zip code is 10104, I'm not going to use if. Instead, I'm going to use switch. And in the switch, I'm going to say that I want you to compare a bunch of values to whatever is in zip code. Right. We do have one pair of braces, and this is going to start switch. And then at the very bottom underneath, I'm going to have a close brace and then stop switch. And everything has to go in between. Highly recommend that you put your stop switch as soon as you put your start switch in, because you'll forget this stop switch at the bottom. So the rest of the syntax is pretty easy. So instead of an equal sign here, I'm going to say case, and there's no equal sign, so case 101014, and then a colon. And now I'm ready to go ahead and do the rest. And really it's just semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. And then to stop this, I'm going to use a keyword break. And that's it. So that's exactly how it's done. So pretty easy. Let's go ahead and grab the rest of the code that I had. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the next two, which is going to be these right here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it in. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all of this, space twice, and say case, and then colon, whoops, not an L, and then semicolon, 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 and then break. Pretty easy. And repeat. Space, space, case, colon, semicolon, 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 and then break. That's pretty easy. Oops, I forgot my semicolon at the end of this break. Notice how I also spaced them out so that it shows that these are nested inside the case is nested inside the switch. It makes everything so easy to understand. Now we have one thing, is what happens if someone types in the wrong thing. We saw we did error checking and error trapping in our flowchart. So in order to program that, we're going to use default. Oops. So default says do this if it doesn't match anything else. And we want to do two things. We want to have an alert, open and close parentheses, and we want to do error flag equals, equals 1. Now, what you also have to make sure you do is copy this and paste it up here and put error flag equals 0. So if we're creating something new called error flag that's not in our problem statement or in our human algorithm, then I have to, when I'm creating it here, I have to go ahead and do something with it, and that's either put it in a blank place in memory, or since we know that we're going to be testing to see if 0 or 1 is in it, we're going to have to come up here and say, okay, well, let's put 0 in it, meaning no errors, and then if an error occurs, we'll just change it to 1. All right, the last thing I'm going to have to do is break. Look at this, no braces, which is great. Okay, and here I'm going to have to use the same error message that I used before, and to make my life easier, I've already written that out. So let me go get that. Like I said, I've already coded this once. Here we go. Just to make my life easier. I just grab all this. Alright, so I don't have to do all that in front of you. It's the same thing we did. You typed in whatever it is. You should have typed in blah, blah, blah. And I can get rid of all these spaces now. Alright, so now that is already all in there. So now I can go ahead and preview it and see if I've got errors. And I do. On line 21, it's expecting a parenthesis. So let's go see what's on line 21. That doesn't look like anything wrong. Let's see, prompt. Oh, I'm missing my comma. How did that happen? Alright, so the in between my default value, and I'm missing the comma here too. Well, let's see. Now here, yeah, I'm missing a comma right here. Alright, so my default value is going to be 100 in that's going to give me the low zip. And when I preview it, 43, I'm missing a parenthesis, looks like. See, this is live coding. Alright, so let's go see what's going on at line 43. Oh, I have an extra parenthesis. I copied that from the other. That's the bad thing about copying from other code. Now it should work, hopefully. Let's go ahead and preview it. Stars. Alright, so 53. Else if... I don't see anything wrong with that. Alright, let's pause for a sec. Alright, so very hard to see. I have, instead of a parenthesis, I have a brace here. Geez, go figure that. Okay, so let's see if it runs now. Alright, so 100, and that is zip, and then that, so you can see it's joining here, so I'm going to have to use my parse int to fix that. So let's go back up to the, here. Alright, so the item cost is coming in as text, so I'm going to have to do my conversion, and I'm going to say that I have a place in memory called item cost, and I'm going to use parse int, open and close parentheses, semicolon, and I'm going to send it that item cost. Alright, let's preview it and see if it works now. And now we're getting the 400 instead of 100, 300. So everything's working perfect. But what happens if we make a mistake? So we do 100, and then I do 11111. Uh-oh, error. And now markup low is undefined. I'm not sure why that is, but we'll go ahead and... Oh, because no markup has been placed in. There we go, that's why. I don't want this coming up and all that mess. So what I have to do is say, well, if the error flag turns to is 0, do everything else. But just like we did in our flow chart, if it turns to 1, we don't want to do all this stuff. So we're going to have, right after our switch, we're going to have a new if. We're going to say that if error flag equals, let's use our copy and paste. So if the error flag is equal to 0, which is the default value. Now remember, equal, you have to make that equal or it'll always be true. And then I'm going to add my brace and say start no errors. And where is that going to end? It's going to end at the very bottom of my thing here. I'm going to have a close brace, and then it's going to be stop no errors. Good. Alright, so it will only do this code if there's a 0 there. So let's go ahead and run it. Well, let's finish out so we know. Alright, so what happens else? Make a move. Alright, so else, if it, and this is going to be has start has errors. Alright, so if it has errors, I want to do a different document write. So, but I'm going to do a document write anyway. So I'm going to do copy drag that down. And what I want to use document write for is I want to put this message again. Remember I mentioned in the flowchart, the reason why we have two outputs is one is alert, the other one's a document write. So I want to put this whole thing into my document write. And then I have to stop that brace. Stop has errors. Alright, let's go ahead and see if this works. No. 50, I have a problem. What did I do? Line 50. Oh, I forgot the beginning parenthesis. You probably noticed that. Now we're cooking with gas. Okay, 100. 104. So it works if there's no errors. Let's see what happens when we put an error in there. 11111. Ah, you have an error. And then it tells you, so this stays on the page when they're done so they can actually analyze what they might have done wrong. Alright, that's it. That's how you code it. You code it with error checking and error trapping.